Cody, you know what this is, right?
Yo.
Yeah. We just yanked this out of a basement, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. What's the problem with this system?
There's quite a few problems with that system right there. Said one big issue is it sits on top of the footing only. You have such a shallow amount of concrete that gets put over top of it, and building code requires you to have 3 inches of concrete where the slab touches the foundation wall. You only get about 1/4 of an inch of concrete with that type of system being installed. So because concrete doesn't go up the full length of that tongue on the back of it right there, it only comes up about 1/4 inch on that tongue is all the concrete that it gets.
Well, and just so you know, we took this out of a basement. The water was not making its way to the sump pump, and when the ninjas broke this out of the basement, they just used a claw hammer to hit the top and totally extract this out. That's how little concrete was sitting on top of this.
Yep, that's a common install for it.
The other thing about this product is the only place to capture water is the part that's butted up against the wall.
Yes,
so
sir.
Unless water goes in these holes, and there's no way for the water to travel under because it sits pretty snug on there, so there's only one access point for this water channel to grab water. So I don't know if they installed it wrong or what they did, but the water was not moving through here to the sump pump.
It's just not the greatest design right there. One issue I saw with those in the past is the water that comes underneath the footing can't make it to that system, so it winds up washing out a void under the slab, and the slabs wind up sinking in front of the foundation wall. Common issue with that type of install.
Right. So really the only thing that this works on is the cove, right, where they drill the weep holes in the block. So as long as they drill the weep holes in the block, then the water from the block is going to go in here. But if you've got, like you said, water coming under the footer and then trying to make its way towards it, it's going to have difficulty getting in there because there's no entry point in the front.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
We're getting more and more calls about taking this product out. And the interesting thing was this product has a lifetime warranty. So I'm not sure why the homeowner called us to completely remove it and install the Hydraway, but just wanted to get your thoughts on why you think that happened. Why didn't they just call the old company if this is a lifetime warranty product, you think?
So they may have called the old company and had them come out and fix it 1 or 2 or 3 times right there, but their warranty doesn't cover the drywall that's having to be ripped out or the flooring that's having to be ripped up again. So the customers probably got tired of paying to redo their drywall and flooring multiple times just to have a warranty piece of plastic put back in.
Yeah, that's what I love about that Hydraway system. First of all, that's why basement waterproofing Ninja took a while to be born, if you will, because I didn't see a whole lot of good technologies out there for the homeowner that would last long term. A lot of these products that are out there, either they only capture the water in one place, or like you said, the pour back is so thin, and you can always have a good product and install it incorrectly. So, but what you're telling me is that's not necessarily a bad install. That's just a bad product design, in your opinion.
Exactly. That's being installed to the parameters it's designed for.
Well, a couple other things I appreciate. First of all, if you're new to Crawl Space Ninja and Basement Ninja YouTube channel, this is Cody. Cody. Yeah, Cody's one of our lead inspection ninjas down in the Chattanooga area, and I thought I'd have him on specifically to talk about basements because he worked for a company, huge company. If I mention their name, you all would know who they are. And one of the reasons why he left was he felt like the quality control wasn't that great, and he had an opportunity to join us. So he's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I just wanted to have him on here and kind of give some tips. If you all have a basement and you're wanting to waterproof the basement, what are some of the things that you've seen, Cody, to help homeowners decide on who to hire? Give us some of your tips.
So with waterproofing the basement, one thing they want to look at there is what they plan on using that space for. There's a handful of different waterproofing products out there that they can use. And they also want to look at the outside grade around the house too, because some waterproofing products are used to seal concrete pours on their cinder block, which really, in my opinion, shouldn't be used as a waterproofing product because that stuff doesn't last long term. The efflorescence winds up eating away the back of those water sealants. A lot of people choose it because it's an easy do-it-yourself job, but they wind up doing it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. By the time they get done spending all that time and money, they could have paid a professional company to do a permanent install.
Now, are you talking about like like a dry lock or a painted? Right. Okay. So the other bad thing about those, and I don't mean to call out dry lock in particular, there's a lot of them out there. But one of the bad things about those products is if you have just concrete or cinder block or block walls or CMUs or whatever you want to call it, typically concrete does not grow mold. Cody talked about efflorescence, which is this white chalky stuff that comes through it. Normally that's calcium deposits. A lot of people think it's a white mold, but it's not. So once you take a paint like a dry lock or a Thompson water seal or something like that, and you paint the wall, you give the mold a food source to eat off of. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. And a lot of times that paint, you'll start to see that water push through that paint and it'll start to bubble too, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's a definite fail. So what do we do instead of painting a wall or putting epoxy on a wall? How do we tie our basement waterproofing system into our Hydraway? What do we typically use?
Yeah, so we use a wall panel system right there. Either use our 12 mil no cap heat guaranteed vapor barrier across the walls to run all the way up there and allow the water to condensate on the backside of the plastic and run down without sealing those pores and causing issues with hydrostatic pressure buildup. Or we also have a hard Ninja wall panel that runs behind there that serves the same concept.
Right, and for those of you out there, I favor more towards the vapor barrier because the hard Ninja panel is great, but it's only 4x8. So you can imagine everywhere you join those joints is going to be a weak spot. So where the vapor barrier, we can run 100 linear feet of continual plastic along a wall. Now, granted, it's not as tough as the Ninja barrier, but it has less weak spots because there's less joints. Is that right?
Yes, sir. So the 12 mil there works especially great if they plan on finishing the basement area. Definitely prefer that over the Ninja wall, especially the finished application.
Right. Now, if you were going to use the Ninja wall as the finished application, then that would be okay. But if you're going to put a wall, like maybe build a 2x4 stud wall and put drywall, then the vapor barrier works as good, if not better, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, I was just going to tell you, I had the opportunity to go out. I visited a house this morning where they had some helical piers and some tiebacks being installed. And one of the interesting things about the company doing it was they weren't addressing the waterproofing issue.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so they were doing tieback. Basically, we would have done probably an I-beam, right, or something like that. But they were using tiebacks. They also did helical piers, but the homeowner called us because they were concerned about the mold in the basement as well as the water coming in. So I'm wondering why this company didn't address those two things first before they started jacking up the house and doing that. Why do you think they would do that?
They definitely should have right there. Either they don't have people skilled enough to address that issue right there. Maybe they're a structural company only. In my mind, even a structural company right there should know enough to say, hey, if we don't take care of these water issues, it's going to lead to further problems. So they should at least know enough to say, hey, look, let's call somebody out here to address this, even if we can't do it ourselves. I mean, doing structural repair work and still having water issues that led to the structural problems to begin with, not a very effective install. The issues are just going to keep coming back further down the line.
Right. So whether you're putting up carbon fiber or I-beams or tiebacks or whatever, you still got all that hydrostatic pressure that's pushing against that block. And their wall was actually bowing in pretty good, but they weren't addressing the hydrostatic pressure. That just kind of blew my mind. So we go out there and of course it's all muddy and they're jacking up stuff and everything else. And Craig and I are out there looking at this basement and we're thinking, why didn't they recommend an interior waterproofing system like the Hydraway? So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So do you come across that a lot where people are just addressing bowing walls, but not addressing the cause of the bowing wall?
Yeah, I see that quite a bit right there. And it's sad for the homeowner right there because they wind up wasting a lot of money on installs that have to be tore out and then redone because it wasn't addressed correctly the first time. Like you said, if you can address the symptoms right there, but if you don't take care of the root cause of the issue, you're still going to have problems. And that's the great thing about the way that we do things right there. We take care of the root cause of the issues.
And we are running into an issue because it sounds like the homeowner wants us to address the waterproofing, interior waterproofing, but their carbon fiber install is in the way. And if we do anything with that carbon fiber, we void the warranty. Yeah. So, that's one of the things that you have to be careful of as a homeowner is make sure, it's kind of like a crawl space. if you address the mold in the crawl space before you address the humidity, then it's in wrong order. There's a certain order to things, and with a basement, you need to address the hydrostatic pressure before you address the bowing wall and the foundation repairs. So tell us a little bit about your background, because I feel like people need to know you're a pretty well educated individual. So tell us a little bit about that.
My background, I've been doing crawl space repair work for about 6 years now. So I am OSHA and EPA certified for the mold remediation and prevention. I've also took the ISSA structural certifications exam for doing structural inspections on homes as well. So I've done tons of continuing education courses and stuff online. So I also have a grade 1 water distribution license and a water collection license. So that got for doing groundwater mitigation whenever I used to work for the municipality in the city. So I spent a lot of time with the municipality doing groundwater mitigations and doing these different certifications. So that's helped me a lot once I come into doing the crawl space work.
That's great. So basement waterproofing isn't just about the interior, but also the exterior, right? You got to get all that taken care of as well. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you recommend to homeowners to address the outside and part of the inside. It's not one or the other. It's normally both. So tell us a little bit about that.
There said, and that's one area that gets overlooked a lot. Around your house, you have what's called an active soil zone, and that's the area around the foundation where hydrostatic pressure can still affect the home. Now, that area can vary from state to state, county to county, depending on different soil types and things like that. But the most important thing is you want to try to find your active soil zone and control the amount of water that's getting there first off, like by extending your downspouts out away from the house, sloping the yard back away from the foundation, things like that, because the less water you have in that active soil zone, the less pressure you're going to have that's put up against the house. And that's going to reduce the amount of hydrostatic pressure and water that's making it into your basement area. Now, that's not going to take care of all the water issues right there, because you still have groundwater that can come up from the water table from the bottom, still have condensation that can form from humidity. So there's quite a few steps involved there to determine the correct water that's coming in there and the proper way to mitigate it.
Right. And just if you're the homeowner watching this video, if there's a couple of diagrams out there where the big excavator goes to dig out your basement, right, and it's digging out all that really compact soil, and then when they backfill it, that soil isn't compacted anymore. So it's kind of like a bowl that your house is sitting in that allows all that water, which is why you're having so many water problems with your basement or your crawl space or whatever. So that's what Cody's talking about. So extending downspouts, right? That's one way to do it. What's some other things that they can do around their driveway and hardscapes and things like that?
You can do like our French drain system around the exterior right there to catch water in the low spots. The NDS drain boxes, any areas where you have standing water puddling up in your yard. We have our trench drains right there. They go across driveways and garages, things like that, to divert the water away from the house as well. Also, like if there's any cracks in your sidewalks or around your porch slabs, things like that, use like an acrylic caulk to seal those joints to stop moisture absorption into those areas as well. You want to divert as much water as you can outside that active soil zone before it absorbs into the foundation or into the ground around the house. That's down to the expansion and contraction of the soil, which leads to foundation failure over time.
Right, and hydrostatic pressure and the bowing walls and all that sort of thing. Okay, so back to the waterproofing system that we took out of that basement. Tell us a little bit about how you feel the Hydraway, because I believe you found out about Hydraway when we started introducing it here at Basement Waterproofing Ninja. How do you feel about how the Hydraway is working compared to some of the other systems that are out on the market?
The Hydraway is definitely by far my favorite. It takes care of the issues at the root source. It has multiple entry points for water to make it to the system. And it also allows for a full concrete thickness being poured back for your slab, which is huge if you're going to finish an area, because you don't have to worry about losing floor space. You don't have to worry about damaging the top of the system. And also with the Hydraway, you can go all the way down below the foundation footing to catch the water at its absolute lowest point. You don't have to sit on top of the footing and wait for the water to come in and then float back up, because that creates weak points underneath the slab and underneath the footing at that point. It's a much more comprehensive system. The multiple intrusion points for the water. It's a high flow system as well. I don't remember the flow rate exactly off the top of my head, but I know it flows water faster than any of the leading competitors in the market right now.
Well, that's a good point. We did a video about that, the flow rate of it compared to some of the other products on the market. I'll put a link to that video down below if they want to watch that and take a look. It's also on basementninja.com's website. That video is posted. And then, of course, all that water has to make it to that sump pump. Now, how many linear feet do we recommend a sump pump, just for the homeowners out there, because they don't want to be stuck with all this water rushing to an inadequate sump pump, or to, especially if they got a big basement. So how often do we recommend sump pumps and pits in their basements?
So the rule of thumb is every 140 linear feet. It's the rule that we follow. Sump pumps do 4,800 gallons an hour. They're high flow Flowtech motors, but still want to do it every 140 linear feet so you don't overcompensate for water that's coming through there. You don't want the water to overpower the sump pump, or not necessarily just the motor, but the basin that it's sitting in, filling up faster than the discharge can happen.
So if you're spending $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 on a basement waterproofing system and you don't have adequate sump pumps, then that water is not going to be taken out. And oh, by the way, what's the other thing that normally happens, which causes that basement waterproofing system to kick in, is a thunderstorm and a power loss. So what can we do to help that as well?
Yes, our battery backup systems are key for that point, Sid, because the time that you need it the most of there is during those heavy storms when the power goes out and everything else. You can have this big, expensive system, but if there's no power to it right there, the system's not going to be able to do its job. That's where that battery backup comes into play.
Very good. Yeah, that SEC battery backup system is amazing because it uses that same sump pump. I'm sure back at where you used to work at, you'd have that real heavy sump pump, and then that little dinky sump pump a little plastic one that would install next to it that never got used. So you didn't even know if it worked, right? Until the power went off, and then you hoped it worked, and then it was half the power of the main one, right? So the SEC, it switches from AC to DC, so it uses that primary pump the whole time, right?
Yes, you have a high flow motor the entire time.
One last thing I'd recommend is if you have a basement or a crawl space, always install a dehumidifier, just to make sure that the humidity is kept under control, because even if you've got waterproofing systems installed, no matter if it's from our competitors or us, you can still have a high humidity problem in basements and crawl spaces, and you just because we live in a humid environment. Now, if you live in a part of the country that doesn't have high humidity, then don't worry about it. But if you're in the Southeast, or maybe up in New England or the Midwest, where humidity just goes crazy during the summer, you want to make sure you put a dehumidifier in those basements too, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this is Cody Herring in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja. We appreciate you all watching and hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later. Say goodbye, Cody.
Thanks, everybody.